welcome back to the corral. Thanks for checking in. Since it is St. Patrick's Day, today we will be looking at an Irish writer. I will be raising my glass in a toast to the ghost of the long-winded lady. Her name was Maeve Brennan, and she was born in 1917 in Dublin, Ireland. She died in 1993 at the age of 76 in New York City. Maeve Brennan is the subject of this biography by Angela Bork. Maeve Brennan, homesick at the New Yorker. Maeve Brennan came to the United States with her father, who was an ambassador from Ireland in the 1940s. They stayed in Washington for a while, and then she ended up in New York City, and she went home to Ireland occasionally after that. She took a job at Harper's Bazaar. She was a proofreader, a copy editor, and at this period, she began writing her own stories. Not long afterward, she became a staff writer and employee at the New Yorker, the famed New Yorker. This is where the story gets interesting. So Maeve Brennan, whose life turns out to be tragic, wrote some marvelous work for the New Yorker. So she published nonfiction first-person account essays under the byline "The Long-Winded Lady" for the New Yorker. She did this for decades. She also occasionally published short stories in the New Yorker under her own name. During her period at the New Yorker, she became friends with an incredible array of people. So this is an excellent biography by Angela Bork that goes into a lot of detail on her amazing, amazing life. Tragic though it may be, it was amazing, and we'll get to the tragedy part in a bit. You really need to read this book if you're interested in reading a good literary biography. Angela Bork, the author, who's still out there writing and doing research, I think she's in Dublin herself, is quite a remarkable woman, and this book is as much literary analysis of her stories and essays as it is a biography of her life. Fascinating to read. So Maeve Brennan comes into contact with an incredible array of people while she's writing. She writes under the handle "The Long-Winded Lady." These have been collected here. So nobody except the people at the New Yorker and her friends knew she was the Long-Winded Lady. This collects a good portion of those. I have a couple of excerpts I'm going to read to you to give you a flavor of her work. So let's start with that. She makes friends fast. She's beautiful. She's highly intelligent. She's a smoker. She's a drinker, and she can swear like a sailor. And Maeve Brennan comes into her own in New York City as a young woman. She loved to dress in black. And there's a photograph here I'm going to have popping up. That's on the internet. The photographer who took these photographs of her that is on the cover of these books was Carl Bissinger, who was a renowned photographer, and he took these photos in the late 40s and early 50s. Maeve Brennan took on this persona of a high society girl. She loved to put her hair up in a bun. Most of the photographs you see of her, even in her old age, she wore her hair up here. She was slender and striking, and always wore the black. So, it's amazing. So she walks around New York, and she's an observer, and she begins writing down her impressions of things, and she publishes them. She strikes up a relationship with the editor, and history is made. All right, these are how things happen. Read the biography by Angela Bork. So she writes these amazing first-person observations. Sometimes they're 2 pages long, 3 pages. Sometimes they're 5 pages. They're not always really long. And I'm going to read you a sample just to give you a flavor of her writing. So listen to this. This is what she does. She walks around and she simply observes and then records her observation of New York. One evening lately, I saw the old lady sitting at her window, facing west, or rather, facing the west wall of her room. Her hair is completely white. She was reading what appeared to be a letter, holding it at an angle in front of her eyes, as you would a newspaper. It was one of those lucky evenings when the white summer day turns to amber before it begins to break up into the separate shades of twilight, and in the strange glow, the towering outline of the city to the south turned monumental and lonely. The Empire State changed color suddenly and lost its air of self-satisfaction. Maeve Brennan, walking the streets of New York City, post-war America, late 40s, early 1950s, and recording her observations for The New Yorker. Let's try a couple more, just two more, because they're so much fun. It seemed a miracle that the one restaurant in New York where I really wanted to be should not only be open on a Sunday when so many places are closed, but be open on the Sunday of the longest summer weekend, and on a weekend so uneasy with the heat that even Manhattan's towering skyline appeared to waver under the fixed abyss that shimmered up there where heaven used to be. That's incredible writing. That's beautiful writing. So once you dig into Maeve Brennan, if you're the literary type, there's no great drama that happens here. She's just observing and writing, and what a writer she was. And let's just one more short one here. It was a snowy evening, not very cold. One of those nights when the Empire State Building smokes with light. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, this is what she does. And then she describes the people in the streets, too. It's just amazing, amazing life. So this is Maeve Brennan, again, wearing black, young woman, and she is something to be dealt with here. Angela Bork's biography makes it clear she was a real pistol. She had many lovers. She was married once briefly. She remained friends with him. He was a writer, too. And her short stories have also been published, and the Rose Garden short stories. And there's two other volumes I don't have yet. Again, this is Maeve Brennan, photographed by Carl Bissinger, and looking the same way. She's always looking kind of distant, kind of somber. And yet she was capable of great happiness. Her prose is elegant. Her short stories are equally as fascinating as her nonfiction pieces that she published under the name The Long-Winded Lady. I kind of favor the Long-Winded Lady pieces a little more than her short fiction, but I do like her short fiction a lot. So here's the thing I have to tell you about Maeve Brennan. Maeve Brennan's at the New Yorker. She's on staff. And who does she make friends with there? So many celebrity writers. One of them I've discussed before, Joseph Mitchell. This is Up in the Old Hotel, a collection of his writings. She was very good friends with Joseph Mitchell. And she's there with him. She's there with another fellow, John McNulty, who wrote Third Avenue, New York. This is Costello's Bar, which was at, 701... I think it was 701 Third Avenue. It's gone now. Costello's is gone. And Mitchell wrote about McSorley's. McSorley's is still there. And when I go to New York next, I'm going to go to McSorley's, and I'm going to film it there. So McSorley and these other guys, they hung out at McSorley's. Mitchell wrote about McSorley's. McNulty wrote about Costello's on Third Avenue. Costello's is gone. There was another popular watering hole for the literate people and celebrities in New York called the Blue Ribbon. That's where Mickey Spillane would hang out. Eric Maria Remarque, author of All Quiet on the Western Front, would hang out at the Blue Ribbon as well. That is also gone, but McSorley's is still there. Anyways, she's involved with this group of people. She's involved with, so many of them. Updike is there later on. John Cheever, another New Yorker writer, and they generally loved her, because she was so good at what she did. I should probably mention, so you don't get confused here, John McNulty. There's John McNulty right there. You're probably wondering, am I related to him? I've tracked both his genealogy and mine, and I don't have a connection. It would be in Ireland. We don't have a connection in the United States. His great-grandfather and my great-grandfather came here at about the same time, different locations, so whatever connection we have on the McNulty tree would be in the Irish genealogy, which I haven't tapped into yet. That's a little harder to trace. We're assuming he's a distant cousin by marriage, but we don't know for sure. Anyways, John McNulty is a great writer. So Costellos belong to McNulty. This book is about Costellos. Some of the stuff in here that Mitchell wrote is about McSorley's. Now, I should mention here that John McNulty was married to Faith McNulty, who wrote a famous book called The Burning Bed, which was made into a movie with Farrah Fawcett, so I'm sure you've heard of it. So Faith McNulty is quoted in Angela Bork's biography. She was able to interview Faith McNulty before her passing. So what we have here is we have this circle of intense literary people, and Maeve Brennan writing these beautiful essays and stories. Her life does become tragic. If you don't want to know what happens to her, turn off the video now. Angela Bork goes into it somewhat in her biography, and she began to suffer from dementia. And as the decades went on and they had staff changes at the New Yorker and so forth, her output slowed down, and she would be seen pandering on the streets, giving money out to homeless people. She was apparently homeless herself, and eventually she ended up in, through the intervention of some friends, in a nursing home where she died suddenly at the age of 76, as I said, in 1993. So it's not a happy ending. There's really not a lot known about her. I read an interview with Angela Bork, who wrote this marvelous biography, that she didn't really dig too deeply into that because she didn't want to smudge up Maeve Brennan's reputation, because she's revered for her writing, and that's what she would have preferred. I think there's enough here that we know things happen to people for whatever reason. We don't know an exact diagnosis, but Maeve Brennan does come to a tragic end. But the bottom line is there's been a revival of interest in her work because of the publication of these books. Her stories, her Long-Winded Lady classic, Maeve Brennan, all the way, and The Rose Garden, and there's 2 other volumes out there I need to get. So if you're looking up Maeve Brennan, also I should mention, be aware that there's another Maeve Brennan out there, and she was linked to the poet Philip Larkin. That's not the same person. This Maeve Brennan, when she died, she was cremated, and the whereabouts of her ashes are known only to her family. Her ashes were returned to her family in Dublin. But I was amazed in reading the biography at the connections she had to these writers, and the places that she hung out with, Costellos and McSorley's, and I mean the restaurants. It's just amazing life. She was in the right place at the right time, and she had the talent to make it happen. If you're going to read anything, if you don't want to read the biography, but that's one thing, I'd recommend read the Long-Winded Lady essays first, and then dig into her stories. And if you can get to the biography, you'll have a little more insight into what she's writing about. But I think it's a standalone thing. I mean, the Long-Winded Lady, this is a classic collection of New York journalism. And that's a thing by itself. John McNulty and Joseph Mitchell and so many others, Updike, everyone that worked and published in the New Yorker were contributing to this legendary era. I've looked at the New Yorker in recent years, and it has very good writing in it, but nothing like this. And for someone to do this, there are no columnists out there writing at the same level of intensity that Maeve Brennan did. I mean, that's how good she was. So today, as I promised, I'm going to raise my glass in a salute to the hard drinking, the smoking, and cussing like a sailor, Maeve Brennan, magnificent writer who left us some treasures to read. Cheers, Maeve. May you rest in peace. And I'll try and get this down quickly. Oh, yeah, it's good stuff. Until next time, my friends, stay well, stay happy, feed your brain, read a book.